So since I don't know the slope for this, and that's one of the two things I need, the very first thing that we're going to have to do, so if we wanted to basically create some steps or kind of an order that we would want to do this, the very first step that we need to do is to find the slope. And we conveniently have the slope formula to help us do that. That's something we've learned about. So we're going to use it. And we'll put a reminder on here too, so you're not flipping back and forth between pages. But we said the slope formula, kind of the fast way to find the slope without drawing out the table or drawing out the graph, would be to find out how far apart the y's are, find out how far apart the x's are, and then divide them. So we can actually do that with our coordinates. And I'm going to, because I know some of you guys like color coding. There's the two y's, right? So those are the two numbers that are going to get subtracted on the top. I can zoom it in a little bit. I see a few people squinting. Is that better? Okay. So I'm going to subtract these, and that's going to tell me basically how far apart those are. So -2 minus 7. And now I've got to do the same thing with the x's. Subtracting the x is going to tell me the number of hops. So 5 minus 2. Now we can actually do the math. We've got it all set up. What is -2 minus 7? Jackson? Yeah. So that means that I'm going down 9, which makes sense because I started at a positive and I ended at a negative. So we could tell I'm going down, right? So I'm going down 9. What's 5 minus 2?
3.
Wake up.
3.
There we go. So basically what we just figured out is I'm going down 9 and I'm doing it in 3 hops. So I have to do -9 divided by 3. And what is -9 divided by 3? There we go. -3. That's my slope. I'm going to put a box around that because that number is important, right? Now, okay, so that helped. I'm halfway there, right? I need the slope and the y-intercept to make the equation. I just figured out one of the two things that I need. How could I get the y-intercept?
I don't know. Wait.
Think about what we were doing yesterday. I'm going to turn back the page. Yesterday, we said that if I start with the slope and a point, I can fill some things in, right? Okay, back to today. Do I know the slope? Yeah. Do I have a point? Yeah. Not only do I have one, I actually have 2 different points, right? Oh, so that means I can use yesterday's strategy now because now I know the slope. I have the information I need to be able to do yesterday's strategy. I want to show you guys something. So, and this is why I said this is yesterday with the layer added on. The layer added on is this first step of figuring out the slope. Once I know the slope, I'm right back to yesterday's steps because now I have the same information that I was working with yesterday. So our next step is going to be use the slope and a point to get the y-intercept, which is the other thing that I need. I want to show you guys something. I'm going to do this a little bit quickly because it's yesterday's strategy, so we're going to kind of walk through it to not spend a lot of time. I know my slope is -3. I'm going to try yesterday's strategy with the first point. So this is going to be using the first point. So that would be the 2, 7. So if I use the 2, 7, and I drop everything into my equation outline where it goes, that y is going to be a 7. My slope is a -3. The x is going to be the x part of the coordinate, which is 2. There's an equation I can solve, right? What's negative 3 times 2?
Wait, where did you get the x part of the coordinate? Wait, where did you get
Coordinate, slope.
Yeah, okay. How did you know to use that x instead of the other x?
What do you mean that x instead of the other x?
Because there's two x.
There's only one x right here.
No, he needs the 5.
There's x1 and x2.
Oh, right. We're only using one of the coordinates.
So we have to do it for both of them? Alright.
Hold on to that thought. It'll get answered in just a second. That's exactly what we're going to deal with right now, is whether or not we need to use both coordinates. Let's finish this off really quickly, and then I think you'll get an answer to your question. Okay, negative 3 times 2.
-6.
Negative 6. Okay. So there's our one-step equation. How are we going to solve it?
We're going to add.
We're going to add 6. So that means that our start value is 13, right? Okay. This is what I want to show you guys, and it's going to answer Xavier's question about what about the other point. Let's try this again, but now let's do it with the second point. So now instead of using the 2, 7, I'm going to use the 5, negative 2. So since I'm using the second point, my y is negative 2. My slope is still negative 3. The x from the second point is 5. Plus my start value, I don't know. Okay. What's negative 3 times 5?
Negative 15.
Okay, so this is going to be negative 2 equals negative 15 plus b. How do I solve that one-step equation?
Add 15.
Add 15. Okay, what's negative 2 plus 15?
13.
Well, that's
Oh,
interesting.
They both equal the same thing. Wow.
They both equal the same thing. So let's go back to the question that was answered. 2 questions for you. Does it matter which point I use?
No.
No, because they both give the same answer. Do I need to use both points? No, because they both give the same answer. So that's why I wanted you guys to see that. So I don't need to use both points. I can just choose one of them. And it doesn't matter which one I decide to use because they both give the same answer. So that means you get to decide. You can pick whichever point has numbers that you think are going to be easier to calculate with. It's your choice because they both turn out the same. So I'm going to put a little note about what we figured out. We only need to use one coordinate because they both give the same answer.
So does it matter if you use x2 or x1? You just randomly choose?
Well, you can't use the x from the first coordinate and the y from the second coordinate. Like whatever coordinate you're using that full coordinate. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, for both of them, like the two pairs of the coordinates, does it matter which ones you use?
Right. So yeah, the 2 coordinates that you use to get the slope, you can use either of them to get the y-intercept. It doesn't matter which one you use because they come out the same.
You just randomly choose it?
Yeah, so you can just, if I've got 2 coordinates here, you can just decide, you know, I feel like using this one or I feel like using this one because they come out exactly the same. So a lot of people, thinking like a student, a lot of people would probably go for the 2, 7 over the 5, negative 2 because people tend to like positive numbers better. So to finish our thought, choose one point to use since both give the same answer. We can choose whichever one looks easier. Since both give the same answer. Now, we are almost done. I need to zoom this out a little bit. The whole point of this was to write an equation, right? We figured out our slope. We figured out our y-intercept twice, actually. But we haven't actually written our equation yet. So now that we've got our 2 pieces of information, let's actually write the equation so that we've fully finished the problem. So our final equation is going to be y equals, what comes next?
13.
Now I've got my slope, I've got my start value.
Oh, yeah. Y equals negative 3x.
Negative 3x. Yeah, plus 13. There's my final answer.